everyone. Welcome to today's interview with Rohin Parkar, CEO and co-founder at Spintly, which is an IoT-based touchless solution provider. Welcome, Rohin, for this interview, and thank you for your time. Now, the first question that I want to ask you is that, the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing social distancing norms is changing the way organizations look at their working spaces. So what challenges does it pose for organizations, whenever their workforce starts returning to the offices? And in some cases, we are already seeing, the people returning to offices in limited numbers.
Yeah, first of all, thanks. Thanks for taking me on, Shipra. It's a pleasure talking to you. Yeah, so in terms of COVID, yeah, it has been a big change for all offices or for all businesses where people had to start working from home. And as people are now coming back to work, there are new challenges like how do they keep the social distancing norms, and if at all there is an outbreak, how do you cope up with it, right? So data collection becomes very important, right? And giving people the ability to enter the office without having to touch objects around them, say for elevators where they have to routinely touch the button on the elevator, right? Which is a routine. You never think about that you will get affected or infected by disease. So solving those small problems becomes very crucial for organizations. And then after that, say if there is an outbreak, then you would want to know how many people were there in the office and who were they, in which areas they were in. So if there was a meeting which happened in a conference room with say 10 people sitting in that room, and if one of them got infected, you would want to know who did he meet. So all the data needs to be logged in, like it is contact tracing. Right? So organizations would want that data. So all that stuff is what we are trying to enable by installing contactless access control devices, which also collect data, and then you can use this data to make sure your employees are safe.
So, can you talk about how technologies such as IoT can help address these challenges? You mentioned about contactless solutions. Can you get into more details about the technology, the IoT technology behind it, and how it can enable organizations in the post-COVID-19 world?
So when it comes to now coping up with COVID, you need to deploy certain devices. Say you didn't have an access control based systems. Now you want to control who comes into the office. You don't want any random person to walk in, right? So you need to now put an access control. Now deploying a new system is an expenditure in terms of capital and infrastructure to be laid down with wires running around in the building. So if the building is already existing, you'll have to pull it apart and pull some wires. You're looking for something which is wireless. So that is where IoT comes in, right? Wireless devices which can be easily deployed, and yet you can pull out data wirelessly from these devices. So IoT, so you want to collect temperature, for example, of every employee coming in, right? You may have a security guard standing there and collecting that data and then writing it on a piece of paper, which is not very efficient. You need something automated which will pull the data, identity of the person and the temperature, and at the end of the month you will be able to generate a report, right? So IoT is something which can easily enable this, and that is where we are integrating access control, temperature monitoring devices together and collecting all this data. So IoT plays a crucial role in all this.
So, what are some of the existing as well as upcoming use cases you see for IoT-based touchless and contactless solutions across different industry verticals? If you can give some examples of use cases which are already existing and some upcoming use cases that you are looking at.
So as offices open up, most of the companies they would not want to own spaces because it becomes a liability. They may want to work from say shared spaces or co-working spaces because it gives them the freedom to have people, half of the people work from home and half of them come to work, right? And in that case, they need something like dynamic access, where you'll say half of the people will have access on say Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or other people will have on the other days, right? So how do you enable such access in co-working spaces, where again people are sharing the spaces? How do you share conference room between companies who may want to share this space, right? And giving access. So we have been working with co-working spaces a lot, where they can now enable access to people dynamically through their smartphones in a contactless manner. So the way we are working itself is changing, and we need technology to enable such kind of work cultures or work styles going forward in workspaces. Obviously, in industrial segment, we are doing some projects where they are very much concerned about contact tracing, to know that, because there is bulk of people coming in industry. Like one of the companies has 2,000 employees who do assembly of some parts. They come in buses, right? And they want to know, okay, which people came in which buses, how many people were there. They want all that data. So in industrial, it becomes more of data collection on contact tracing and making sure their employees are safe when they work in big groups.
So besides the corporate offices, the co-working spaces, and plants, the industrial spaces, do you also see scope in any other industry segment? For instance, the residential, the real estate market.
So residential, definitely. Most of the residential gated communities now are becoming more and more careful about who is coming into their communities. Right, there are various companies who provide those solutions in terms of controlling using security guards. But now even security guard, many guards have gone to their hometowns. There is shortage of security guards in the market in general, because they have gone to their hometowns. They're never coming back soon. So there needs to be technology at every access point. So even residential communities want to restrict access to their gyms or their swimming pool areas or their common areas using technology, not by putting a guard. So we see even residential communities wanting these solutions, and they would want to know who has gone to the gym. Say yesterday, who all people were in the gym, so that they know that if somebody gets affected, they would want to know. Okay, I need to be quarantined because somebody else got the disease and I was in the gym.
Can you tell us more about your solutions that you have developed at Spintly, and along with some examples of implementations that you have done in the recent past? Maybe once COVID started, how your solutions have been helping organizations.
So what we focus on is frictionless access, smartphone-based access for users, whether it is as workplaces or industrial places or say residential places. They can use their own smartphone device to gain access to various doors and various amenities. So in offices, it would be conference rooms, cafeterias, or the main entrance or the elevators, right? Where they can use their existing smartphone. So we are working with a lot of co-working spaces who are focused on giving seamless access to all their users. We're working with some of the largest co-working spaces now, pan India, where they can control the accesses to their main entrances using flap barriers, different types of access barriers. So we enable their users using smartphones. So co-working spaces has been one of our core growth areas for since we started the company, and it is looks to be a growing area in the post-COVID era. In the residential segment, also we have started seeing a lot of growth, where again same kind of applications, where smartphone becomes a key part of your life. Right, you are never away from your smartphone, pretty much. And so if you have your smartphone on, you will never lose access, and it is a frictionless access. So you can have it in your pocket and you can just walk past the door and it will open the door for you. It feels like magic for the user, you know. And it is smartphone is your kind of parchai, it is like your shadow. So it gives that experience and sense of control to the user. And that has been our focus throughout.
Mhm. So, are you looking at any new solutions in the future? Coming up with new solutions around again around IoT based contactless, touchless technology.
See, in terms of end use cases, there are multiple. So we want to get into hospitality, for example, where guests can now check into their rooms with their smartphones without having to have a carrier card along with them, right? So with the technology which we have built, we can offer solutions to multiple verticals, whether it is residential, hospitality, or workplaces, right, or say industrial segment. We are currently focused on workplaces as a segment for our growth, and slowly now working with partners in the residential segment. But in future, yeah, hospitality will be the area where we would want to even grow.
In terms of the future of contactless and touchless technology going forward, what are the new opportunities and use cases will it create? You mentioned about hospitality as an example. So, what are the new opportunities that you see going forward for the space in general?
So I think self-service, giving power to the consumer, right, where the consumer can book a hotel room, walk into the hotel, do a self-check-in using his own smartphone device, and then walk up to the room, and the phone can navigate that person, say that you have to go to the fourth floor, turn right, and then here is your room, and go inside the room, right? So giving the power into the hands of consumers is what we see will happen, because a lot of companies would want to be operationally very prudent, and would want to give a better experience to the end customers. Right? Bigger, very bigger giants, or say hospitality aggregators, they have grown so fast, but uh, the human factor of giving the experience becomes a challenge. Training everybody to give a very good front desk service, right? And sometimes it falters when you grow very fast. So technology will play an important role when somebody wants to scale and make it a repeatable, scalable process. Where say a self check-in kind of a thing would be a very good experience for the users. So we see that that kind of a thing will happen across the board, whether it's hospitality or even offices where visitors come in. Visitors sometimes spend a lot of time in the lobby trying to get into the office, right? Just because the security guard has to call the person, then the experience becomes very clumsy. So giving a better experience across the board for visitors, guests, is what we see will happen, and that technology will enable that.
In that sense, even healthcare segment, the hospitals, I think that could also there could be use cases, interesting use cases there as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely, hospitals becomes a very big segment in terms of access and contact tracing. Uh, so we as a startup, we have uh, not ventured into hospitals or healthcare at this point, given the sensitivity of the issue right now, whereas COVID is kind of dominating in there, and it becomes a huge liability. And a startup also struggles with how many verticals it can target. It's very important for a startup to stay focused on a niche market segment to conserve your resources, right? So as we go vertical by vertical, we have a roadmap where we're only targeting workplaces, then residential, and then going into hospitality. Then education is another big segment for us, which we have kept on hold, because as students come to school or colleges, you need to make sure they have access, their attendances can be tracked, who is meeting whom, and teachers are also coming in. So that is also another segment for us. So there are multiple opportunities out in the contactless space from vertical point of view. But as a company, we are focused on certain at this point.
Great. Thank you so much, Rohin, for your time. I think that was excellent, and we really hope to see all these plans of yours, start bearing fruits soon.
Thanks, Shipra. It was a pleasure talking to you, and definitely we are positive about what we're doing and see a great market and future ahead for Spintly.
Great. Thank you so much.